Good evening, AJ. Welcome to my stream. And yeah, it actually works surprisingly well tonight. Everything on Twitch. City Radar. Nice to see you on the chat, even though there is American content on the agenda today. And I forgot last week to congratulate you on the World Championship in the hockey tournament. So I want to do this today. Yeah. I guess you deserved it. As a country, as a team. And my condolences regarding the train crash that there was last week in the Czech Republic. 4 people dead, many injured, on a line with a locomotive that had ETCS installed but not running. Will be very interesting to find out what went wrong there. Another week, another crash. Yes, it was one of the newest tracks locomotives that they had. No, MS3 multi-system 3 entered service in 2013 23, and still it can collide with a freight train heads on, running on the same track in opposite directions. The stuff that actually should not happen nowadays, and still it does. Well, but not in service yet, but we don't know why it is not in service yet. Maybe because not everything is installed or has been installed yet. Well, little heads up on the dogs. Chili is still alive. She's fighting, still eating, still going out, still wanting cuddles, just like now at the moment. But it is a dire fight. She's fighting. Poor little one. What did I do to the game? I actually found new enthusiasm in the game because I did my homework a bit and checked my engine ini settings and found out that some of the stuff was actually not up to date anymore. And I found a very great ini setup put onto the forums by a guy called Geloxo, who does a lot of interesting content for the game. Nothing new has been there for quite some time, but I just did not look into it. And I activated DX12, and now the game is running on DX12, and it looks really so much better. Yeah, actually I wanted to do couplers today, but the presentation on the couplers takes longer than I expected, and then I started to look into an very old DLC, loco DLC, that I have never really played, and surprisingly I liked it. The MP15DC switcher that runs on the Peninsula Corridor, and this is what we are doing now and today. And we can look into the second part of the Caltrain rules, dwarf signals and freight speeds. It actually was supposed to be a locomotive to do the coupling stream, but then on the other hand, it works very well for this part. And I want to start doing this with a scenario where we see a lot of signaling aspects that we have not seen in the Baby Bullet stream, where we looked at the first time into the speed signaling part that Caltrain uses. And Caltrain signaling is in many ways a quite normal US signaling system, speed signaling system, and then in many ways also with unique features. Good morning, you have been tasked with cutting and delivering trains of aggregate cars. What have we been? Message log. across the line so that essential track maintenance can begin. This is what we are actually doing. This is this funny little locomotive, our MP15 diesel switcher. So a diesel electric locomotive, obviously. And this brings me back to the roots of the game. We have a fuse cabinet. Can test the fuses here. Spectre, hey, good evening. Well, I'm hanging in just as chilly as. There have been better times. It is quite harsh and challenging with her, but she's still alive, and well, we will fight and soldier through this. Safety systems, I suggest not to turn on before all the coupling is done. Well, maybe we should turn them on because we are going out on the line. It will always blow your PCS switch. There is a switch for number lights. And what does CD Radar say? It's not today's topic, so just a short one. The entire station underwent a complete renovation very recently. In the process, they removed our national safety system and replaced it with ETCS, but the launch will not take place until the fall and then in 2025. Until then, you drive here without any safety system. Unfortunately, it became apparent right away. Hopefully, this will speed up the implementation of ETCS. That is still about the train crash in the Czech Republic. The disastrous one that happened a couple of days ago, and now I can see the problem. And we are back to one of the oldest problems of railroading, that two trains running on the same line in opposite directions are disastrous. And of course, RegioJet buys old rotten cars from Austria. Those are those sleeper cars that fold like yeah. What are those things called? And so even though the train was already stationary at the time of the impact, the whole car broke and this caused the death. Yeah, the passenger train was stationary and the freight train was moving, right? This is at least what you can see in one of those video footages that are on YouTube, whereas in some of the news reports it says that the freight train was stationary. Well, what you can very impressively see is where the compressing forces in a train are the highest, and this is the coupling behind the locomotive. Yeah, and this is yeah, and this is the thing. The coupling behind the locomotive, this is where all the compressive forces are the highest, because the whole train is pressing against the locomotive. That can happen if the locomotive breaks or if it is actually accelerated into the rest of the train as well. And if you have a car there that tends to fold up, then a concertina, I think is what I meant to say. Yeah, this is obviously a bad thing to have. By the way, says Spectre, one thing I noticed after the stream about driving in the wrong track was that in Train Sim Worlds, some HP and VR and HP1 and VR1, where they should not be all the time, that is totally possible. Rosenheim, Salzburg. There was actually a quite intelligent, no, not a very intelligent post of Noir about the little white additional light on those HV and KS distance signals and repeaters that unfortunately has been watered down with a lot of other posts that were not so much to the point. And actually he got a response from Matt, and maybe they will fix that now. CD Radar says the last thing I'll mention about it is that it's easy to see that the new modern truck's locomotive was pretty much intact, while the old locomotive was cut in half by the car behind it. So driver safety is on the right track, yes. While the old locomotive, the freight locomotive, right? I was not able to find out what exactly what locomotive was on the freight train. It was a GD cargo locomotive, right? So one of those blue ones. But I wasn't able to find out what locomotive actually it was. And this train, the freight train, if I read this correctly, had 2 empty cars behind the locomotive, right? What is a bit of a buffer then. So for safety reasons, because of the hazardous materials that the train was carrying. Well, it is really sad that at this day and age where we have so elaborate safety systems, still the most basic things can go wrong because the timelines are not, well, working together. Switching off the old safety system and not installing the new one in time, and you have a safety gap as wide as, well, whatever. So that the next possible day 2 trains can crash into each other head on. Wow. Okay, that's that. Go back to something less disastrous. It was a 360. Okay, I will later check it out what this exactly means and what locomotive this is. Thank you very much. I actually tried out to find some information from the Czech equivalent of the NTSB, the independent authority that every country in the EU must have to investigate railway accidents, and unlike Greece, the Czech Republic actually has this body already since 2002, I read, but the website is not really elaborate, at least not in the English version, so I did not find any mentioning of this there. So I hope at some point you can read the reports there. Well, a lighter topic. Switching about with our little locomotive here, we are at this maintenance facility. No, we are not at the maintenance facility, actually we are in... Am I playing actually the correct scenario here? I'm probably... Well, whatever, just let's play this. Maybe it's not what I wanted to play, but no hard feelings. Some lights on the rear only dim because we're coupling up anyway. And we're coupling up at the moment, so we're not going on the line. I had some other thing in mind. We don't have an alerter on this locomotive. This is why I switch off the safety systems before coupling, otherwise we will blow the PCS switch anyway. And before coupling, always make sure on this locomotive to know whether you are coupling up to freight cars or passenger cars, because this is one of the rare occasions where you can actually shunt around passenger cars in an American line, and shunt those gallery cars, and then you have to pick the correct setting for freight or passenger on your cutout valve. The difference is that with freight you have, maybe I spoofed it right now. Now we will see. You have 90 psi in your brake pipe, and with passengers you have 110 typically. You can see the brake pipe and the equalizing reservoir going to 110, and if you are coupling up to passenger cars and are on freight, then you are only filling the brake pipe with 90 psi, and then the control valves in the gallery cars don't release the brakes because they want 110 psi to release. At least this is what I had experienced here. So, as always, I am super late because I'm talking about everything else of what we are doing here. So, before we start, let's find out where we are actually supposed to go and if the switches are aligned properly. Straight ahead and coupling up to the cars, reverse signaling. Okay, we don't want a route, we just want a mission. With the locomotive up and running, head to the holding yard and collect the train. But look at how the game looks now. So much better than the Peninsula Corridor looked when we were running the Flying Scotsman there. You would not believe it, how much difference it makes to have proper settings in your engine ini and use the X12. That is definitely a thing. Hello Lion Roots, says Erica Kelly George. Nice to see you after quite some time. How is the day of your possession? How is the day of your possession? Interesting choice of words. Well, as I said, we are soldiering on. My poor dog is not well. But we will make it through another day. By going back to the roots of the game and playing it really easy today, talking about off-topic stuff. Sometimes when you're getting off this seat here, then you end up standing on the roof of this locomotive. Next time we will talk about couplers, knuckle couplers. Here, type E most probably, bottom operated. You can see if I use this uncoupling or releasing a lock rod to unlock the coupler, it attacks from the bottom, whereas here on the locomotive it attacks from, can't really see it because the end of train device is in the way, it attacks from above when opening the coupler. Now I have both couplers unlocked. Well, we'll see if that will work. No, it is locked, it says. Then it's good. Type E indeed, he says. That is good. I am creating a method of making the language of angels, that is English in the most complex day, that is currently within our possible realm, he says. Alright. That sounds like a project for a Sunday evening. And the interesting thing with knuckle couplers is that we need some little speed to couple up, and then it locks automatically. Now this hissing and hissing and hissing sound, we coupled the air pipes automatically, what obviously Hank would have done probably, and we coupled to a train with an empty brake pipe, so the air that is in the brake pipe here in the loco would have just vanished into the rest of the empty brake pipe. This causes a sudden drop in brake pipe pressure, and this typically blows the PCS, the pneumatic control switch. This is why I had the safety devices off, when the pneumatic control switch does not get blown. Now I have it on, so in case that there is an emergency brake application or our train separates, signal is green, we can start. Then the pneumatic control switch will turn off. The power is all good, headlights are on, brakes are released, even the independent brake is released. That is probably not what should have happened. Luckily the train did not run away. What route looks the worst? Well, I will still have to find out with the new engine INI settings what route looks the worst. And they managed to make AAR couplers automatic. More honking. And the bell. What I did not read out for you is that the game told us that we will probably have to go into... Oh! So, what happened now? We did not pay attention that we set the wheels correct, the switches correctly. And so we ended up on the wrong track. Good thing that no train can come from the opposite direction here. But this is probably why you should not give too many speeches while driving your trains. Especially if your second man is only imaginary. I won't be those assholes on YouTube you put air compressors and train horns on their trucks. Are they actually people doing that? The second man is the Joe Rogan podcast here. Tea and biscuit, Spectre, yes. The good thing is that the manager is very, very far away and probably did not notice. So, actually I'm doing it myself if Hank is not doing it. Throw the switch so that we can actually leave the yard. Not the emergency brake. So, but now we actually check where we are going. This is correctly aligned. This is not aligned properly. Now it is. And now we should be able to make our way out of the yard. I hope I did not... Well... Can't hurt to put the reverser to forward. Maybe you should not let people drive your trains with their dogs in critical situation, otherwise you will always end up with a lot of mess. I bought Hank Spirit of Steam recently. Why? It was about $10. Totally different animal. Getting your head around the reverse regulator thing is a bit unusual. Yep, that is true. I'd love to see, instead of the game ending when spat, you get a message from your manager explaining how you're now fired and the game auto deletes. Yeah. Well, that's probably a bit harsh for a simulator. Yep. It's actually really cool. Here it is a bit harsh that they hid the signal behind the bush. Not that one, but the other one. Now we finally make it out on the line. It's not a simulator, it is a simulator. Okay. You have it. South San Francisco it is here, I guess. And now we're going southbound. Pressing pause to cheat and see the limit. Yeah. Actually, I went around this, but now I did it to see if we are out of it. We got the clear. That means we can go line speed. Line speed is 50. Also for freight trains. I know I sound like a broken record, but DTG should do more liveries of the 1500 and roll it out to other American routes. Shame it's earlier to get data for flights, easier to get data for flight sims and speed limit data for rail lines. It makes sense, but yeah. And you're right, Spectre, they should do this. But then on the other hand, there is a lot of stuff that they should do. And sometimes there is something that we ourselves can do, like looking at your engine ini settings or trying out the X12. It actually makes the game more interesting. But don't hire ones from Rivet, that would be horrible. I think that that the TSG should hire more employees so it doesn't take a million years for a single loco to come in. PlayStation 5 has left the group, yeah. I know. For the PlayStation, somebody at Sony should do all this. Maxing out the graphics setting. Support Rivet phobia, cause damn, I've seen some scary things. Well, I actually started playing the Bernina route and it looked so bad that I looked into my ini settings. And then it looked much better. So some stuff is actually on your own. And you're right, it took them forever to fix the Arosa line. Yeah, in case you have not noticed, Peninsula Corridor is the DLC with the most honking that there is in the game. If you want to practice 14L, Peninsula Corridor is your choice of route. So many crossings and upset neighbors, that is true. And it is the DLC with the brightest headlights that you can wish for. Sometimes the headlights are so bright that you cannot read the signs anymore. Not before actually they vanish out of view. I have not seen any quiet zones. And AJ, I will do your drive-by here on this elevated station. Eclipse glass is needed. Yeah, but it looks so much better now with the X12 and the new INI settings. Before that it was all a bit white out, and I was always complaining about the whitewashing, and it turns out that it was my outdated INI settings. For a big part. Inspector says he was happy when they put the Pacific Ocean back into its place. Very true. Whitewashing is a racial issue, man. Well, I don't like whitewashing at all. Now we are getting a signal. Approach medium. An approach medium on a freight train means we have to slow down to 25 miles. So starting at 50, we really have to slow down properly. Next signal is an approach slow. Passing the approach slow, we have to slow down to medium. This is why we got the approach medium before. And slow on a freight train is 15. We're going on to the left track, running across or against the current of traffic. Let's hope that the dispatcher knows what they are doing. And Erica Kelly-Jaw says the most I've been doing is keeping the aspect charts up on Chrome because I'm not too serious about it. I tend to rather enjoy my experience. Alright. Each to their own with that. So we are already slow enough. Until we actually get to the next signal, it would be totally okay to go with up to 25. Do you change the units depending on the route? No, I have the automatic setting in it. So it changes it automatically for me. And you play in French and don't speak French. Well, Maybe after a while you will speak French then. This station is Millbrae. And here is our slow signal in the form of, you can see it up front there, a slow approach. Yes, it is bright. The Californian sun. Slow approach, that means we have to go across the switch with not more than 15 as a freight train. As soon as we made it across the switch, and here is already a train overtaking us. Isn't that not nice? Still have to keep the bell on because we're running along a platform with passengers on it. We can now accelerate a bit. Go back to medium speed of not more than 25. But still be prepared to stop at the next signal. But we have to keep under line speed. Line speed is higher than the 25 anyway. But here is our red signal. So we have to make sure we can stop in front of it. This loco does not have a dynamic brake, only the automatic drain brake and the loco brake, obviously. So air brakes only. And now we have to wait for another service to pass, apparently. So the one that overtook us when we were running through Millbrae station was not the only service that has priority. But there seems to be another one. Even though all the lights are red. Not only for us, but also for the two other lines. Yeah, you can see even during the day, even during the bright California day, you can see the headlights. And the headlights are so strong in this DLC. Sometimes they are so strong that you cannot even read the signal lights anymore. Here is an uncollected collectible. And here is the service. And our signal switched to a medium approach. And we can go on. That means we can leave the siding here with medium speed. But the next signal is still red. Spectre says have to play that route again. Forgot how decent it is. Yes. And play this MP15 diesel switcher stuff. There are a lot of interesting services. Sometimes you really think the old stuff was so much better than the new stuff. Not like 20 times drive from A to B and then from B to A. But with a lot of interesting shunting maneuvers. Weird constellations. Formations. Here you can see, can almost not read the sign. Now we can read it. Now we are allowed to go 50 line speed as soon as we got better signals. We're still on the wrong track, actually. Mustn't go faster than 25. Probably we will go over this crossover here. Medium speed 25 for freight trains. For once because we left the siding with this speed, and then because every approach signal will always limit you to maximum medium speed. And now we're back on the correct track, at least on the loco. The cars take a bit. And since we are running under approach, we still cannot accelerate beyond medium speed. But this will be the time where we switch to the presentation for today, recapping Caltrain signaling rules with a updated presentation, and adding dwarf signals, freight speeds, and then look a bit on the signal sequences, what we have not done so far, and on some of the signs that you can find there. So a Caltrain Speed Signaling 2 tutorial it is today. And this is my updated frame. As you see, I'm mostly relying on Joseph Hubert's signaling charts again, because I still don't have a Caltrain rulebook. And my frame is now ordered as it always has been, but with some new captions. I have a column for the clear restricting stop signals. I have a column for the approach signals with different prefixes, and a column for the advanced approach signals with different prefixes. And what we have already done in the last stream, we have looked at Caltrain passenger speeds and the signaling, and obviously the speed categories are the same, but the speed values of different. Track speed obviously for freight and passengers is the same. Limited was, and this was awkward, is 50, whereas on most northeastern routes and railway carriers, especially in the NORAC universe, we always have the 45 for limited, so we are 5 clicks higher here. Same goes for medium, it is typically 30, and in the northeast, and here it is 35. Slow is 20, whereas somewhere else it is 15. Restricted is maximum 20. Always be ready to stop in front of train, broken rail, and so on. And then the stop obviously is 0. And the signals, we know that it is something that is out of the Code of Federal Regulations, the CFR. We need the red one for stop and the green one for go. We cannot switch this around, and the yellow one is either for approaching a stop signal or for restricted speed. In the Caltrain universe, it is used as in many other signaling systems for the approach. I have 3 heads here on my diagram, but I have never stated this, especially well, we all know that on some signals that do not have 3 heads, all the red ones underneath can be just missing. So that would be totally the same signal, or on some signals you only have 1 head. Reds one underneath, if they are missing, if there are signal heads underneath missing, if you don't have 3, then those are always considered as the red ones if you compare it with the diagrams. In the Caltrain universe, for the restricting, we did not have the yellow one, typically red over yellow, like in some other signaling rules. We do not have the lunar white, we have the flashing red. And we have seen that on 3-headed signals, it does not make a difference which of them is flashing. One of them must be flashing, then it is a restricting signal. So there is no normal restricting or medium restricting or slow restricting, because restricting always leads to restricted speed and you cannot go faster than that, maximum 20, always on site. And then we have the typical usage of the green light moving downward on the signal heads to get slower speeds, and if we have it flashing, then it is the higher category. So the limited would be the green move down to the middle and flashing. The medium would be the non-flashing green in the middle, and the lowest head with the green one would show you a slow one. If there is no other light than a red one, so above the green one, the red, then you have the clear version. That means you are limited now when passing the signal to the speed in question, but can accelerate after you are out of the interlockings. In German, you would have the anschließenden Weichenbereich, and then you can go back to line speed because it is a clear aspect. So no further implication from this signal. On the other hand, you have the approach category. Here, no restriction from the signal at the moment, but be prepared to be restricted at the next signal. We replace the red one over the green one with a yellow one that we know from the approach signal to make sure that we are approaching what is stated underneath. And so we have the yellow over the flashing green is the approach, red over flashing green, and the yellow over the steady green is the approach, red over the steady green. So normal approach, medium, normal approach, limited. And for slow, there are some signals that have the yellow, red, green one, not in the Caltrain universe, so that we can actually use that on 2-headed signals as well. That is the yellow over yellow. So what would be in a root signaling system, the approach diverging aspect typically is here the approach slow. And then we have what we do not have in every system, and what I have never seen here in the DLC, the yellow over the flashing red will be the approach, obviously restricting. Often what you get before you go to or reach a restricting aspect is just the normal approach. So approach a red one, if it then is flashing and restricting instead of stop and stay signal, all the better. Then you can go on. So typically here in the DLC you get the approach, and then instead of the red one that you are expecting, you get a restricted one and can move on with restricted speed. So I have not seen the approach restricted. Where I have seen it is in the Antelope Valley line. Going into the yard there from Los Angeles Union Station, there you can actually see an approach restricting signal, not here in the San Francisco Peninsula area. Maybe there is it anywhere. If there is one, just tell me, I want to see it. And then obviously the advanced approach, you have the yellow one flashing, then you know you have 2 signals until you have to stop. Typical sequence: advanced approach, then stop. Some signals of the approach variety have already a restricting effect on your speed, especially the slower one, so that you don't run with 79 miles line speed and then are expected to stop short on the next signal or be down to 20. This is why those signals have already the implication that when passing it, and you are not already at medium speed, then you have to begin to slow down. It is not very strict. You have to begin to slow down so that you not approach the next signal too fast. That holds true for the approach slow, for the approach restricted, and for the approach stop signal. And on the advanced approach, you have to limit your speed respectively, not to the medium speed, but to the limited speed, so that we are running more or less into a speed funnel. If you want to make it stricter and slow down the train on the approach signal already, then you have again moved down the aspect one signal head so that you can end up with a medium approach medium, for example. The difference is not so really harsh on those signals. Here it is harsher because here you don't have any speed restriction. In here you are supposed, this is what the downward facing arrow with the exclamation mark is, to slow down to medium speed as fast as possible. And the same works with the approach slow and with the approach restricted. Here slow down to medium, or begin slowing down to medium, and here begin slowing down to medium as fast as possible. This is not so big a difference, actually, I should say, but it is in rules, so the limitation is a bit harsher. And it also works for the medium approach, the signal that we just had when we went out of the siding. That means if we are below medium speed, then obviously we're not supposed to go faster than medium speed because we are running up to the signal, and the next signal is expected to be red, so we have to be prepared to stop at the next signal, but when we are passing the signal, not faster than with medium speed. Same works here on the advanced approach side. If we move the flashing yellow one step downwards to the bottom, then instead of a normal advanced approach, we have a limited advanced approach where we have to be already at limited speed when we're passing the signal here. Even slower, what can happen, or what happened to us when we were going into the siding, because we were not allowed to go across the switch with a faster speed than slow, then we can move it down even more, and then we have a slow approach signal here. And that means when we're passing the signal, we can't do it with faster than slow speed when we are passing the signal already, not just sometime afterwards. So we have to slow down to slow speed when we're passing the signal. After that, when we are out of the interlockings with our whole train, then we can go back to medium speed, the medium speed that we have here, and approach our red signal if there is still some way in between. And this is what we did just here at Millbrae when we were sent into the siding so that the other trains could pass us and we are out of the way. So we slowed down to slow, then we passed the signal, went over the switch. When we were across the switch, we accelerated to medium speed and then finally stopped in front of the stop signal here. Same thing here, also works for the advanced approach. There can be a slow advanced approach signal that limits us to slow to go across a switch, and then we can go back to limited speed because it's only the advanced approach. Then we finally would get an approach signal and go down to medium speed before we then stop. So this is a recapitulation from the first Caltrain Speed Signaling stream that is 1.5 years ago about. What we have not talked about then is that there are also the stop and proceed aspects in the Caltrain system. What we can now, since we have talked about so many things in between, compare with the automatic signals in the British system until recently, or until a couple of years ago. We have talked about this, that those signals were permissive, so that automatic signal with the automatic signal plate could be passed at a red light, stop in front of it, and then pass it on own authority, being cautious. And this is more or less the same here. Signal plates, as shown here, appear on automatic signals, not on the control signals at interlockings, but on automatic signals on the line in between. And if those show red, that means that the block is occupied, but you can still enter it if they have a number plate after stopping and then proceeding with restricted speed. Also in the Polish system that we have talked about when playing SimRail, the Polish automatic signals are still permissive in this way. You have to stop and then you can go on with maximum 20 kilometers per hour. So those are the stop and proceed signals in the European way. Also the French with their franchisable semaphore signals. Not so much in the German system. There are some permissive reds in the German system. I think we will have a stream about them at some time, but they are not so super popular in the German system at any rate. So here we have them. Number plate and a stop signal is not a full stop signal, not a stop and say signal, but a stop and proceed. So stop and then proceed with restricted speed on your own authority without having to contact the dispatcher or signaler or anyone at all. Those signals can only be signals with 1 or 2 signal heads according to rules. This is most probably because automatic signals don't come in three-headed versions. Three-headed versions would be control signals then. So automatic signals are typically in a piece of track where there are no switches, and then there is no need to signal a slow speed for going across a switch. What we have not talked about on the last stream are the respective speeds for freight trains that are significantly slower than the high passenger values. That is for limit speed 40. So you can see if you have the 45 from the NORAC universe, the passengers are 5 clicks above and the freight trains are 5 clicks below. Same here for the medium speed. 30 is the one that you typically have in the NORAC rules. The passengers are 5 clicks above and the freight trains are 5 clicks below. The slow one is 15. Obviously here it's getting so narrow that there is not that much room for divergence, and then the restricted speed is the same, maximum 20. Obviously a freight train always has a slower restricted speed because it is harder to brake, and you always need to be prepared to stop your train in front of train or obstacle. So those are the freight values. Quite easy to memorize from the NORAC system. You always have the 45 30 15 more or less in your head, and the passenger values are 5 clicks above and the freight values are 5 clicks below, except for slow where they are just on 15 because 10 would be too slow at any rate. What we have not talked about are the dwarf signals, the little signals that you encounter especially in yards or when going in and out of yards or stations. They can be 1, 2 or 3 signal heads, what is quite rare. Typically most dwarf signals only have 2 heads, but here according to the rules they can have 3 heads, what can just replicate the high signal. If they are all red, obviously, then it is a stop and stay signal, whereas the green one, the high green one, the clear signal, is, as you can see, not a one bubble with the green, where the one-headed signal with the green one is. We will see in a second, but you must have at least one red one underneath, 1 or 2 red one underneath, so that you can see that this is a high green. Otherwise it would be not a high green that gives you full clearance for track speed. And the same thing holds then true for a lot of those signals. They just translate into dwarf signals like those here. Reds underneath, it is either the first 2 seen from the top or the first 3 replicating the high signal, or the topmost 2 of the signal. That holds true for the approach. And then here on the slow aspect, we find the one-headed green one. So the one-headed red one is obviously a stop one, and the one-headed green one is what we have quite often, a slow aspect. So all the aspects with the one-headed dwarf signals are typically slow aspects, because on stations we are going slow. Like the dwarf signals position light dwarf signals that we have in the NORAD system typically, they are always slow, like Long Island Railroad or in Boston, for example. You have those signals that are, even if they are permissive, slow signals. And so the one bulb in green on the floor is a slow clear, not a high green, not a clear track speed, sondern slow clear. And also the one yellow dwarf signal is not a normal approach, but it is a slow approach. And same thing, if it is flashing, it is not a normal advance approach, but it is a slow advance approach. One signal head typically is the slow variant on the dwarf signal. With the restricting, it is totally, well, it does not really matter anything, because you don't have a slow or normal restricting. Restricting is always restricting. And the same for the stop and proceed. Obviously, if a number plate on the dwarf signal, then it is permissive. Again, you can stop and then go on with restricted speed. So this is, we have all the one-headed already on the map, and then we can fill in the rest according to the rules that we have seen, with one exception where we get to later. If we have the greens in the middle and flashing, then it is the dwarf version of the limited clear. If we have it non-flashing, it is the dwarf version of the medium clear. For the slow one, we need 3 heads to do the same, because if we only take the top 2, we would end up with 2 reds. What is a stop signal? Obviously, what we can do on a 2-headed dwarf signal to express a slow clear, we will get to in a second. The restricting ones can be with 2 or 3 heads. Again, one of them is flashing, and then you have a restricting aspect, so many different versions, but all end up with the same restricted speed. And you can also have a 2-headed version with a number plate on the dwarf signals that is then a stop and proceed. For the approach variant, here is nothing new, same ruling principle. We just replace the red one with the yellow one, and then we have the dwarf version of a normal approach limited signal, approach medium signal. And here it is nice that we use this version of the approach slow, not the yellow, red, green one. So we can take the topmost 2 and end up with the dwarf version of a normal approach slow signal here. We can also again use the same principle to create approach restricted dwarf signal, and the same to create a medium approach stop signal. The same ruling principle to create a normal advance approach signal and a limited advance approach signal. Whereas for the medium approach medium variant, we actually need 3 signal heads on the dwarf signal to express this. There is no version with only 2 heads. Same goes for the medium approach slow signal. For that, we need 3 heads on the dwarf signal, so that we just copy the high signal on the dwarf version. Same goes for the medium approach restricted signal. What is another signal that I have never seen in the game anywhere, and I think, well, I don't know, wherever there is a need to have this, maybe when you're going across a switch that only allows medium speed, and then you are supposed to run up into a restricting, but at the same time you can also get a medium approach to do the trick here. For the slow approach stop signal, we have the same thing as for the slow clear signal, either only 1 head or 3 heads to copy it, or to just use the main aspect color. And then what do we do with those? And here the same slow advanced approach stop signal, again 3 heads or 1 head. What do we do on 2-headed dwarf signals to express a slow advanced approach stop, a slow approach stop, and a slow clear signal? That is quite interesting. I've not seen this before. You can put a lunar white on top of it. So on the dwarf is a lunar over green, a lunar over yellow, and a lunar over flashing yellow is the slow clear, slow approach, and slow advance approach version. So interesting rule here to add to the rules that we know, the ruling principles for the different signaling systems. Never seen a signal of that in the game, but in the rulebook, in Jovet's signaling charts, it is marked as such and makes sense to use it that way. And it's the only way that we have a lunar light in the Caltrain system here. Where it makes sense to have this, I don't know. Maybe someone can spot it. Interesting addition. Another interesting addition that is a specific thing for things that only happen in San Francisco is the reduced slow speed. That is even a slower speed than the slow speed, and this is only true for San Francisco station area. So the little dwarf signals that you encounter when running out of San Francisco until you are in an area where you get high signals, they are one-headed signals, as we can see, and they give us slow aspects, and this slow speed is even slower than the 20 respectively 15, but it is a reduced slow speed that is 15 respectively 5 for freight trains. So this is something that we need to know when we're running out of San Francisco, but typically it doesn't really matter because the line speed is not higher anyway on passenger trains. For freight trains it can make a difference, and this applies only to those one-headed signals in green, in yellow, and in flashing yellow that typically give you a slow clear. Then it is not maximum 20 for passengers but maximum 15, same for freight trains respectively. And for the slow approach and slow advance approach that restrict you to slow speed, and the slow speed that you're restricted to is the reduced slow speed in the San Francisco station area. And now I think we have covered the Caltrain speed signaling with all its twerks, as long as we can see them on the open net, including the dwarf signals, including the stop and proceed, including the freight speeds, and including the dwarf signals in the San Francisco station area. Having done this, I thought, well, recapitulating the Caltrain signaling system will not really fill the stream. It took long enough anyway, but still I've prepared a bit more, like signal sequences in action. Having all the signals on the board is one thing. Another thing is how they work together and create a sequence that makes sense. Obviously, the simplest sequence would be the sequence to stop on a straight line. At some point a signal shows red. For some reason the signal we get in front of it would be the approach, before that the advance approach, and then something that can come as a surprise. You can even get, before you get to the advance approach, an approach limited, because as we have seen on our frame, the advance approach signal limits you to limited speed, or you have to at least slow down to limited speed as soon as you pass the advance approach signal, and this can be announced to you by the approach limited signal already, and only the signal before that is clear. And in terms of 2, 3, 4 aspects systems, this actually ends up in a 5 aspect system, right? Before you go to the stop, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 3 signals actually that warn you. So 3 signals. Excuse me, 3 signals before you get to the stop. You already know that you are running up to a stop signal, and it starts limiting you speed wise, not before you pass the advance approach. Then you are supposed to start slowing down to limited speed. More is 50 on passengers and 40 on freight trains. As soon as you pass the approach, you get to slow down even more, 35, 25 to medium speed, and then to stop at the signal. That is the simple thing that happens on one line. If you're running, and if you're allowed to pass on, then you typically get a high green a clear signal that allows you to pass on the line. Whereas if you are sent into a siding, just what happened to us, it can even get more complicated. This is the siding that we have to go into, and then the stop signal is, as in our example that we played here, the stop signal is in the siding. And as we got it in the mission that we played, the signal before the switch that leads us into the siding is the approach signal. And at the same time, it limits our speed because we are going across the switch. So we are getting not a normal approach signal, but the slow approach signal at this point. And the signal limits us to 15 as a freight train, so slow speed, because we should go slow across the switch, which is actually quite nice. So we don't have to look it up in our timetable how fast we can go across the switch. The signal already limits us so that we are not going too fast across the switch. And because already here there is a speed limit, we are not getting an advanced approach on the signal before, but an approach slow. At this signal, we are approaching a signal that shows a slow speed, and at this signal, we have a signal that orders slow speed and orders us to prepare to stop. So this is quite clear why approach slow and slow approach are two different signals. It's easy, super easy to always mix them up, even if you know that they are different signals and what they mean. But this is something that you always have to pay attention to. Approach slow, slow approach are different things. And what signal did we get before we get to the approach slow? Well, it is obvious as soon as we think what happens on the approach slow. We already get reduced to medium speed when passing the approach slow signal, or we have to start slowing down to medium speed, and this is why we get an approach medium in front of it. That does not limit our speed yet, and the signal before that will be clear. So different sequence, not approach limited, advanced approach, approach stop, but approach medium, approach slow, slow approach, and then stop. What limits us? Stronger. It's more restrictive than this one because we have to go through this bottleneck. What is the switch here? When we are across the switch, we can go back to medium speed. This is what the slow approach signal says, so that we are ending up in the same situation that we had up here, where we are approaching the stop signal with maximum medium speed, because that is a speed where we can reasonably stop our train as soon as we get to the stop signal, typically. At least not when running down Cajon Pass with a heavy train in fog and without route knowledge. I know. Then medium speed is too fast to stop the train in front of the stop signal, but typically this is something that is safe enough. Spectre says driving across all those red lights must be special. Yep. Yeah. You need to know which red lights you can pass and which you can't. And then you obviously need to be careful. When we are getting out of the siding, it depends on how fast we can go across the switches. In our mission, we were allowed to go medium speed because this switch was fast enough. If this switch is as slow as the switch is here, then we can get a slow clear. Typically, we don't get a high green then, because we still have to go out of the switch again. So it can be a medium clear, obviously, or if there is more traffic ahead, and medium or slow approach or advanced approach when going out of the siding again. What I want to show here is that we typically don't get a high green, but a restricted green, because we have to get out of the siding again. With a longer siding, and this is the third example that I want to go through to see those sequences in action, it also can happen that we have to stop at the end of the siding, but the siding is so long that it is subdivided by one more signal, so that we can get on the siding a normal approach stop signal here with the green on top before we got to the stop, and then another signal, the signal before that, must have to slow us down so that we get through the bottleneck, what is the switch here. And so it can happen that the slowness that we have to be ordered to keep at this switch comes at the advanced approach, and this is the point where it makes sense to have all those different speed variants of the advanced approach signal, so that the flashing yellow can be on the bottommost signal head, ordering us to go no more than 2015 here across the switch, then obviously we can go faster again and the approach and stop. The signal before is obviously a signal that orders us to not go faster than slow speed at the next signal, and that is the approach slow. And since the approach slow limits us to medium, we need a signal approach medium that warns us not to be faster than medium speed at the next signal. So this sequence gets one signal longer. The clear one would be the one that is no longer in the diagram. So quite a lot of different aspects after the other. It makes sense because the speed funneling effect comes from the sequence of the aspects here. At first we don't have any restriction, and with the advanced approach it starts. And here it starts already with the approach slow, and this is why we must get the approach medium. If you can go faster speeds on the switches, it gets less complicated, because then maybe we have an approach medium and then a medium advanced approach, or at this point a medium approach. When we run into this, then we don't need the approach slow in between. But this you can figure out for yourself, I guess. After we are in the siding and we got in not with a slow approach, with a slow advanced approach, we can go back to limited, because that is the speed that we can go after passing the advanced approach. So as soon as we are through the switch, through the bottleneck, we can do what we can always do after passing an advanced approach. We can be back to limited speed. At the approach then, we have to do what we always do, slow down to medium, and at the stop signal we have obviously to stop. So I think those three examples of sequences that we can see in the game actually make it a bit more clear why we need all those different versions of the same aspect, like slow advanced approach, medium advanced. No, medium advanced approach doesn't exist. It's only a limited advanced approach. But for example, approach, medium approach, slow approach, so that we can have those two things that the signals always tell us. How far is the next stop signal away, and do we get a speed restriction from the signal, and what are we running up to, can be figured into it. So this is what makes, in my opinion, those American signaling systems so magical, because you have this whole assortment of different aspects, lights and arrangements, and they can give you so many different information about what is happening on the track. Yeah, here again, obviously, when we get started, we need to get out through the switch again, so we would probably not get a high green. Last slide for today is running up with a couple of fixed signs. What I've looked into is those mileage signs that you can see, and you have those white signs that give you a number that is the mile starting from San Francisco going southward. So if you're driving from San Jose towards San Francisco, then those numbers decline. So it's not measured in both directions, but it is, as I have seen, measured from San Francisco and then counting down, or at some other point at least it is always in the same direction, and there is a mile in between. Why is this interesting? Because you have those yellow signs. Don't know if you ever happened to see them, and they have a point in front of them. So just like the hectometer boards in the German system, you can see where you are on the track, and you can encounter like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.8 and 0.9 before you then get to the next white one, and the 0.9 and the 0.1 is behind that. Is the stream still on? There was something weird happening on my Twitch. Yeah. Well, I hope it is still running. Can I see the time? Sound intermittent. Okay, there was something weird in between. I hope at least the session timer is still running, so I hope it did not get really interrupted. So those are the mileage signs, and the interesting fact is that the mile is subdivided in tenths of miles, even though the miles and yards and feet don't subdivide into increments of thousands like in the metric system, but in those weird things like 1 mile is, as I have put it here, 1,760 yards, and there is well, there are 3 feet in 1 yard, and in the British system you would have in between the chains. So I think there are 80 chains to 1 mile, 33 yards to 1 chain, and then 3 feet in 1 yard. What actually makes it quite difficult to always calculate that in your head. So I think this is why they had the metrical subdivision here with the tenth of miles. But if you are calculating that then between 1.4 and the next point increment, you will have 176 yards, what equals 528 feet. And what makes it more complicated is that not always all those signs are on the line. So sometimes there are signs missing, and they are giving you only every odd increment in between. I don't know if there is a rule to that. I have not found any documentation for that. I can only tell you what I have seen in the game, but the principle is actually quite clear. You got the full miles and then the tenth of miles to show you where you are. Station signs. What is to say about station signs? There is this diamond-shaped one with the S, what is a sign that tells you that there is a passenger station in a distance of 1 mile. It's a bit like those white rectangular boards with the black stripes in the Austrian and the German system that announce a passenger station in 1 kilometer. Here you have the S diamond sign. And at the station you got stop markers that look like this. I have seen spot cap and spot B, and then spot cap 6 and spot B6, maybe even with other numbers, but those I have seen. Those are well, where is my there should be a tag saying spot marker. Why are there so many different ones? I think, and I have not really been able to verify this, that the white ones with spot cap and spot cap 6 are for the normal trains pulled by the F40 locomotive and with the Nippon cars, and the orange ones are for the baby bullet services, the MP36 and the bi-level cars. They are a bit longer, obviously, so that the trains end up properly aligned. They have their own stopping markers, and those are for the long trains. You don't have those on every station, but some stations have them. I have not been able to find out why exactly the trains need to be aligned like this, because the entrances for the handicapped doors, you don't find those elevated platforms like in the Antelope Valley line, for example. I have not seen them in the game here. Maybe on some stations there are, but those stop markers, I think that they are to be read in this fashion, so that the white ones are for the normal trains and the orange ones are for the baby bullet trains. Speed signs, also not a really difficult thing, but you need to know how they work. See them in many systems, that the green arrows pointing to the top with white numbers, and the yellow arrows pointing to the bottom with black numbers. Sometimes you have 2 numbers, sometimes you only have 1 number, and sometimes you only have a green arrow without any numbers at all. How are they to be read? Obviously everybody knows that. It's the same in the British system. If there are 2 numbers, the higher one is for passengers, the lower one is for freight trains. What we always have to keep in mind is that engines running light are, at least in the British system, and I guess it's the same here, considered as not freight trains, for passenger services, so that they can actually use the faster speeds when they are running light, but this can always differ from operating rules to operating rules. And so we have different speed restrictions for passenger and freight trains. And one thing that you need to know in the Caltrain system with the speed signage is that we not the thing that they only take effect if it's an increase that the whole train has to pass them, but that you don't have an announcement and an execution sign, but you only have one sign, and automatically without a second sign 1/2 mile after the yellow sign the reduction actually begins. So that is the twitch, or the interesting thing that you need to know about the system. So you don't need to look for an announcement, and you don't need to go into emergency braking when running past the yellow sign, but you have 1/2 mile to bring your speed down. What actually is a quite simple way of doing it. CD Radar says 79, what a speed. Well, yeah, that is the thing, that 79 miles per hour is the speed that a train without safety systems or special safety systems can go. In the United States, there was once, I think it was in the 1930s or 50s already, I don't know, there was a big crash, as there always is, and after that it was decided that trains that want to go faster than 79, well, actually they decided the trains that want to go 80 or faster need to have special safety systems. At the time it was already long before positive train control were one of those acts to improve railway safety. And since they said trains running 80 or faster need those thingies, we did not get a speed of 79.999 as the fastest speed that the trains without those safety systems can go, but they settled with 79, and this is why we always have this weird figure of 79 on our speed boards and speed restrictions. The board without any number just removes the restriction before to the value that we had before, like here 79 and 50 again. But if it's just one number, obviously, then it is for both. Then you can stack reductions so that a reduction does not need to end with a green board to what it was before, but you can reduce it even more. And also on the green boards you can have one number to go back to a higher speed. So this is what I thought that you can say about those signs. What I have not touched are the whistle boards. Maybe I will make a special stream about whistle boards and the 14L rule, because that is such an interesting thing, and there are so many ideas about how it needs to be implemented in the game and what you need to do, and maybe I will do a special thing about that. For today, this was the presentation. Thank you for staying with me so long. It's always interesting how long you can talk about stuff, even though you think you've already talked about most of it before. CD Radar says, good presentation. Thank you very much. I like my presentation today as well, even though there are no sensational new things in, but it always helps going through stuff that you thought you already know once more, and then it all starts making sense more and more. And CD Radio says, by the way, another train crashed today, but luckily it was only a minor incident where the train broke through the buffer. Nobody was injured. Oh shit. So that was another train running into a buffer block. Luckily nobody got injured. Luckily we can go back to our switcher and bring our service on. Hyperlord, thanks for the teachings and thanks for appearing on the chat for the first time. So where were we? We are on a line speed 50 track We are running under approach. That means we still have to prepare for stopping at the next signal. By the way, I'm shouting all the time like this. Maybe I should bring the game volume down a bit so that I don't have to shout like this all the time. But well, on a diesel switcher shunter, it is a thing where you have to wear ear protection, otherwise you will suffer. So, what we see here, the 0.8 at the same time as the whistle board, the X board, and we can already see our signal has cleared high green on this signal. That means we're not running under approach conditions anymore. We can accelerate to line speed. Since we are so slow, I did not start honking at the whistle board. Here's a mileage sign, 15. I leave the bell on when we are passing the station here. Here are the spot cap. You can see 0.2. Here's one of the station signs. In 1 kilometer we will run into another station. Whistle board. Sometimes the signs are a bit hidden in the bushes. That makes them hard to see. Like for example this one. The 0.3 sign is hidden in the bush, is not so important. One mile, you count it. Line speed 50, signal is clear, and we have one more level crossing to pass. Now 6 level crossings. In France there will be a speed of 350, says CD radar. Dimming my lights because there's a train sitting on the opposite track. 5 to go. Four to go. Three to go. Two to go. Station announced. Men at work. One to go. And finally, We made it through those 6 honkings. Even though we are going full throttle all the time, we are just getting closer to not the next 6 honkers, but the line speed of 50. Stay beyond. 5 to go. 4 to go. 3 to go. 2 to go. 1 to go. Station announced. Mileage sign. I made it, but I went beyond track speed. Track speed is 50. Signals are clear. And 2 level crossings ahead. Here's the station that was announced. So, no more to go. Next station is announced. Signals are still high clear, high green clear. One level crossing. No more level crossing. Line speed is 50, signals are clear, no level crossings. So this is what I always try to call into my memory. Line speed is 50. Signals are clear. 2 level crossings to go. Probably we should dim our lights when we are running through the station. 1 to go. Line speed is 50, signals are clear, no level crossings. Make sure not to speed this time. Station is announced. Now that we're running up this dam, we don't have that many level crossings anymore. Line speed safety, signals clear, no level crossings. 5 miles to go to the next stop. Line speed stays at 50 for us. Bell for the station. Passing with dim lights. Station is announced. If someone gets hit on the other side, you'll never know. Yes, it's true. I'm using this view because we can see the signs and signals nicely. We're driving from inside, we don't know what's happening on the other side anyway. Now it says Palma. At least the people here stay beyond the yellow line. Parking lot bigger than European villages. Yes, that is true. The size that parking lots have there, they could almost be fit to declare their independency. Their independence in Europe. So 2.7 miles until we get to Redwood holding yard. I guess we will be getting some signals before we get there. Line speed is reduced to 45 in half a mile. Station is announced. Signals are still clear. Imagine you park your car and then walk 4 kilometers to the station. Yeah, you actually need a train to get from your car to the station. And now approach medium. That means we have to bring our speed down to 25 at the next signal. Did I miss the whistle board for the next? Probably I did, because there are quite a few of them. And I have never seen Redwood City. I've seen Redwood City before, but I have never seen a quiet zone marker in this DLC. Hey, go beyond the yellow line. Bree ahead. Back to 50, but the signal is approach slow. That means we need to stay below medium speed here. And be down to 15 at the next signal. Two to go, I think. One to go. And there is the next signal. It looks like it's all red. But there is a third head with a yellow lamp. And this is a slow approach. Slow speed now. Into the yard. Prepare to stop at the next signal, but as soon as we are across the switch, we can go back to medium speed if we want. So far we didn't run across the switch, so I will go on. Maybe there is one coming up. And CDRA says, why not just an idea, instead of a whistle board in the track, some staple that would open the horn valve for a few seconds. That way you would never miss it and it would be automatic. Yeah. Or a balise, huh? And Spectre says this whole area must be super expensive because of Silicon Valley nearby. I guess so. Here's our switch that we got the slow speed for. The signals ahead are for the opposite direction. They are not for us, so those are not the ones that can be read. Actually, slow speed would not have been totally necessary. 25 could have given us a medium approach to get across the switch here. Well, we got a slow approach anyway. And the CDRA says the balise would be electronic and there could already be breakdowns in communication. The American solution would rather be some kind of mechanics. Yeah, you're right. And then you don't need a cable. Or drive 300 kilometers or miles to fix your balise if it is broken. We are across the switch. That means we can go back to medium speed, 25. On the siding. Siding allows for it actually. track speed here. But never forget that we have a red signal in front of us. And at any rate we have to stop in 1200 feet. So let's have our pretty train roll into position. Stretching it a bit. And here we are. Nice work so far. Uncouple some of the loaded cars here, and after that head to Newhall Yard with the remaining loaded cars. Okay. Actually, the mission isn't over here. That is a fun thing here. If you get out of your seat, sometimes you end up on top of your locomotive. The seat must have quite strong springs to propel you on top of your locomotive. Oh, that was the wrong one. Should have only left a couple of them here. Occupational safety. Yep. 40. It's not the one that we need. That one is the one that we need. Actually, I have to go one more siding. One more stop. And let's do that. Okay, are we good to go? We can actually not see what the signals are telling us, but... $18 miles, jeez. Is that a long mission here? So, we're still approaching a red signal, as far as we know. That means we're limited to medium speed. 25. Station is announced. So until we can see what the signals have for us, I think it is a slow clear that we can see up front. Can't imagine this remote living. Is there CD radar? Well, I think it is. what you are used to. Yeah, and it is a slow clear that we're getting here. That means we are allowed to leave the siding. As we are used to, even in the most remote village here, it is quite a short distance to a big city where everything is available. That is true. So, going across the switch. Line speed will be 50 again if we are out on the open track. Signal speed is slow, clear. And I think there are no level crossings on the list anymore. So it looks as if our cars are around the bend. We can put the foot down and throw in some more coals. Newhall Yard. Yes, 2 more honks with 24, and we can wait a bit to get closer. The rule is 15 to 20 seconds before we hit. Oh, they were dimmed already. Ja, Chili, wir gehen dann schon noch mal raus. Just get the train to Newhall Yard. This is one of the stations where we have those different stop markers. Spot cap 6, then the other must be earlier here. Spot cap, spot B, spot cap 6, and for the longest bit we'll print spot B6 here. Station is announced. Last of the level crossings. Yes, and now there are 5 more to go. Inspector says, when I play the game, my dog likes to sit beside me on the sofa. She's really enjoying the tranquility of the game. Oh yeah. Chili's typically underneath my desk, enjoying the tranquility until she thinks that now we should go out. And then she stands up and pokes me in the side with her nose. 4 to go. Three to go. Yeah, dogs are really nice companions. Two to go. And we are through with it. Train from the opposite direction. Station announced. Oh. Sorry guys. I have to take her outside. It is urgent. I will have to pause the stream for a bit. And I will be back in like 10 minutes. So, back I am. Sorry for that, but with the dog in the terminal stages of cancer, you sometimes have urgent matters on hand. Yeah, Spectre, thank you for being on the stream all the time today. Now he's out with his own dog. And CD Raider says he would like to have a dog. Yeah, maybe sometime in life things will change and then you can have the dog. I actually never thought I would have a dog at some point in life. And now I have one. And a great one too. Let's bring the service home. There's no point in letting your duties slack. Line speed should be 50. Signals are clear. No more. Level crossing. This is one of those stations that are not used during the whole year, but only during special occasions like football games, I think. This is why there are no passengers here. Next one is already announced. I think there was a hidden export. Here's a football field. Then we have 14 miles to go to Newhall Yard. The dogs have settled down. Spectre is out with his own dog. AJ is asleep. Hank is only imaginary. Nevertheless, we will bring the train home. Strange. So without all those level crossings, the driving is much more calm. Train is more or less coasting with line speed. Signals are clear. One level crossing. Another level crossing station announced. Signals clear. Station ahead. But I actually do not know if on this locomotive this switch here does do anything. Switches the behavior of the traction electronics. I think I once used the auto setting and I was not really able to accelerate anymore. But this needs further testing. .5 miles to go. Yep. Line speed is and was and ever will be 50 miles per hour. Signals are clear. No level crossings. Now there are 3 level crossings ahead. Two to go. 1 to go. That would be a really nice touch for the passengers if they got jump scared being on my side of the yellow line, and then you honk at them and then they hurry across the yellow line. Line speed is 50, signals are clear, no level crossings. 7.4 miles to go. Reduction to 45 incoming. Level crossing. Line speed is 45, signals are clear, no level crossings. Climbing to 50. Three level crossings. Station ahead. Oh, was already at dim. 2 to go. One to go. Line speed at 50, signals are clear. No level crossing. Lights up right. 5.7 miles until the next stop. Line speed is 50, signals are clear, no level crossings. Signals are bright, lights are bright. Station up ahead. No bell because we are not running along the at the platform, but on a one-track remote. Still lower the light probably. Can't hurt. Line speed is 50. Signals are clear. No level crossing. 3.6 miles to the next stop. Line speed is 50, signals are clear, no level crossings. .2 miles to go. I wonder whether we are getting some signals. Line speed is 50, yes, we are getting an approach limited. That means slow down to 40 at the next signal. Being a freight service. So, line speed 50. Signals are approach limited. No level crossings. Speed is almost at limited. Next signal is an advanced approach, a normal advanced approach. That means we have to slow down to limited and be prepared to stop. And this is the signaling divide. Now that we have photo mode, we can actually look at it, even though nobody's listening at the moment anymore. But here you can see those signs. Begin route signals, begin number 3 track, and in the other end, begin speed signals between number 1 track. So starting from those signals here, we no longer are in the speed signaling system, but in the route signaling system that we have not talked about yet. But nevertheless, we got an advanced approach. Line speed is dropping to 40. That will not be of any importance for us because we are dropping now from 40 to 25 for this medium speed, so that we are at medium speed at the next signal. And since we are now in the route signaling territory, the signal up ahead is not an approach slow, but an approach diverging. And we have to look in our timetable what the diverging speed is. Well, it is at least not slower than what we are traveling at the moment. The good news is we don't have to slow down to slow speed. That was the shadow of the plane. Dim for the station. That's Santa Clara here, right? Signal up ahead is a diverging approach, now that we are in the route signaling territory. Not a medium approach. But does not make that much of a difference. At least I would have thought, yeah, and the game agrees at this point. I can still run medium speed, 25. Well, not actually medium speed. Because it is now route signaling territory. But this is why I like those missions with this little diesel switcher loco so much, because you can actually now here have a run with a wide variety of different aspects, as well from the speed signaling part as the route signaling part. Now we are in the siding where we are supposed to stop. So, stretch the train a bit. No, that's too much. Don't need that much brake. We need to get a bit more ahead. And here we are. Now we have to uncouple. One thing that I don't really know for the uncoupling, I thought that our knuckle couplers need to be condensed a bit when we are supposed to uncouple them. So that would mean we should have to press the locomotive against them. We're supposed to uncouple. Again, we ended up on the roof. Now in a way where we cannot really go down. Now we managed to fall back, at least on our command stand. Uncoupling. Leave the loaded cars here, and we are running to our maintenance facility. Since we don't have any cars anymore, we need a light at the back. And, well, brake is released for our location. We are running there. Do I need to set any switches? Oh, I should. Now we are running this sideline here. We can enter into the yard. What's the track speed here? 10 when we go into the yard. Until then it's 40 still. Well, it is quite quiet without all those rattling cars behind us. We have to stop at the entrance though. Another one of those stations that are only there if there is something special happening. Again, a diverging approach. Of course, going ahead here into the maintenance facility counts as diverging. Apparently, this should be the part where we are slowed down to 10 track speed. Let's check it here. Yeah, that's about that. One nice touch at this locomotive is actually that those side view mirrors or rear view mirrors are actually mirroring something if you get the angle right. Isn't that sweet? Yeah, this teaches us that it is never a bad thing to look into your old stuff. But it is a bad thing to do stuff without paying attention to what the game wants you to do. Because now we ended up in the wrong track. Maybe we should have stopped to set the switches. And we should have reversed here. So, go back a tick. And this should teach me not to get mesmerized by the rear view mirrors if I have to stop at the entrance of the yard. Because he's stopping at the first switch before we get into the yard. Even if it is not rewarded with an objective anymore, enables us to call the yard master. Doesn't want to talk to us. Nevertheless, he can allow us in, and at the same time we have to set the switches properly. Do it from the map. Oops. Let's do it from the inside and then the map, so that we can get to our stabling position. That one is okay, that one is not okay. And this is where we are supposed to end up, and I think as long as we are on this track it is 10, and from this done it is 5. So we're coming in anyway. Ready or not, whether you are talking to us or not. It's been a long day. We came all the way from South San Francisco. So we need to get in. And I'm really super happy how the game now looks with the X12 and the new INI settings. Thanks again, Geloxo, for all the effort that you are putting in to make this game more enjoyable. Your INI tweaks really stepped up the game for me again. Just look at that. It is just so nice how everything looks. And I've just started to discover how all the great old routes now look with Train CEMOF 4 technology and the skies and the dynamic weather, and now with a proper lighting. And you might have realized there was not the slightest bit of a lag. So I can only encourage you to use the X12 if your machine can run it, and use the INI tweaks that are on the Dovetail forum in this particular thread. Just search for Train CEMOF 4 and INI tweaks. Oh yeah, a great one, the City Raider. Nice that you're still here while we are running into our parting position. And here we are. Now we have to switch off the locomotive, switch off the lights. I was driving with dim all the time. Number lights off. That is already in full application. Wants us to. Also, the reverser handle actually goes here into this stand. And the brake is moved into suppression first. What is nice. Then it is cut out. And then it is moved into handle off position. Independent brake needs to be released. All good. Then it wants the generator field. And now climb down, it says. Climb down off the roof. There. No, I actually wanted to check if I can turn off the engine. It's the emergency cutoff. Does it have a... Well, then I will not cut it off. The number lights switched off and the emergency devices, the safety devices are turned off. So now the locomotive is in its original state and we can go home. Climb down from the locomotive. It's actually great that it says that. What is not working is the running. Ah, no, it is working. I just was using the wrong key. And I think this is where the marker is for us to get a break. And that's it. Thank you so much for bearing with me. It took a bit longer because I had to go out with the dogs in between, and it's actually a long mission. And it is a great mission. What did I do here? Oh yeah, I was speeding, I remember. But it is a great mission to see all the different aspects. You get the sequence for going into a siding, have to stop there, then on a second siding, and then even for the route signaling part, there is something in it, and those signal aspects make sense. So sometimes you get to think that the old DLCs had much better working signaling scripts than some of the new ones. I hope they will get back to the standard of quality, even with the new DLCs. That must be great as well. But at the moment, I'm really happy in investigating all the old DLCs with the new technology, what they look like, and sometimes, or most of the time, you really experience quite nice surprises. Anyway, thank you so much for bearing with me. I wish you all good night, a great time. I will take care of my dogs now. You take care of yourselves and see you around. Comfy nights and CD Radar. Thank you very much and take care.